Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and the designer I chose for my designer presentation is Piet Oudolf. So, Piet was born in 1944, um, in Holland, and he grew up, working with his family at the family restaurant and bar. However, by his mid-20s, he was completely enveloped in, horticulture and gardening, and this really shaped the rest of his life. Um, Him and his wife moved to a small town called Humelo, where he really began his designing and horticulture career. They moved to the small town to create the huge garden that they dreamed of, and to also have a nursery where he can really enhance his love of horticulture and gardening. Um, Pete also, his design philosophies have are groundbreaking and have blown away the industry. And he is world renowned for everything he has done. So his philosophy is very to have control, but also to have freedom. Um, he wants to create a lot of emotion in all of his designs. And one big thing he did was leaving the dormant growth through the winter. Um, and he loves this because not only is it seasonal interest, yes, that's a dead grass, but it has color and it still has form. But he also is fascinated by the life cycle. He often says, humans take their entire life to experience a life cycle. We can experience the plant's life cycle in 1 year. And this is so cool, and he absolutely loves it. You have birth, you have growth, and you have death, all in 1 year, and he loves to create this environment in his designs. So jumping right into his first design is his private home, out of Humelo. This is in Humelo, Holland, obviously, which is in it's in central Holland. This was open to the public for many, many years. Recently closed just a couple of years ago. Unfortunate, I know, but we have these pictures at least. On his property, he had the nursery that he always dreamed of. It was a 6,000 square meter nursery. It was open for 28 years, closing in 2010 actually. And this is like the nursery and his personal garden is where he experimented and formed his palette. His nursery propagated plants that lent itself to looking wild. Um, and he really curated his palette of hundreds of plants. If that gives you any perspective on his design, he loves plant knowledge and really emphasizes plant knowledge in all of his designs. And that's how you create the look of Piet Oudolf. And here you have a huge meadow, which he created after the greenhouse has closed. On the location of the greenhouse, he used the plants from the greenhouse to create this meadow. And it just blows my mind away how beautiful and peaceful and serene this garden is. Moving on, we have Hauser and Worth, which is an art gallery in Somerset, England. It's kind of like central England almost. Um, with this design, he was given a completely blank canvas. He had no expectations. They knew he would make it beautiful, and they were happy with that. What he did is he made a 1.5 acre meadow. There are 26,000 herbaceous perennials in this design. And with this design, this is a little bit of a departure for him, not in the plantings, but the general design is very traditional. We have the circular, we have curvilinear, kind of combining here. And that's a little new for him. And then with the plantings, he really created this meadow. The plantings itself are a mix of grass dominant and then also perennial dominant sections of the plantings to add to the meadow like feel of the garden. with this garden as well. He didn't consider the surrounding landscape. He wanted to create this garden as a room where you experience everything within this room, and it's such a special way to feel and feel the emotion of his garden. And this garden is the favorite design that he's done in his career. So moving on again, we have the High Line. The High Line, oh my goodness, is incredible. I've been a fan of this garden, or this park, for like a couple years now, is when I found out about it. It was an old train track which opened in 1933. It closed in 1980, and the dormant track, on the bottom left image here, you can see it was just a wild landscape. Everything grew wildly. The public saw this and loved it, and so they commissioned Piet to be the planting designer for the park to create the same feeling. Obviously, perfect person to go to for this feeling, and he nailed it. The above images are just a taste of this garden. The garden has a huge variety of plants. There's 500 plus species. First of all, the garden is 1.5 miles long, which is a substantial amount of space. Although it is skinny, it is substantial. So what they did is they created multiple sections. There's woodlands, there's grasslands, there's a forested area, there's an open lawn area, there's like a water feature area, there are meadowlands, of course, and there are just the original plantings as well. And so this all is just a taste of wild growing nature in the middle of New York City. It stretches to a very new development and stretches all throughout the city. It's absolutely fascinating. The plantings itself, the plantings were chosen for mainly their hardiness, because a raised train track is gonna freeze in the winter, not only from above, but also from below. And it's also gonna experience a lot of high winds. And so they really had to plan for this heavily. Their 500 plus species of plants are also heavily curated, not only for the wild look, but also to live and thrive in this environment. It's also created to be very sustainable, and this was especially focused on the texture and color throughout the year. Being in such an iconic city, it has to appeal to everyone all the time. So moving on, as I've mentioned, Piet is such an iconic man, and he's done so much for the industry. It's hard to pinpoint some of his designs as the best, but these are definitely some of the most relevant and some of the most interesting, in my opinion. And so we have the Toronto Botanical Gardens, the entrance to them. This is obtainable to us, and I can't wait to go here. The Lurie Garden in Millennium Park. The Millennium Park is iconic and groundbreaking in its own, but Lurie Garden is a huge meadow in the middle of Chicago. And the contrast between the city and the wild is just a beautiful thing to experience. Queen Elizabeth Park in Stratford, London, England, was the location of the 2012 London Olympic Games. And unlike a lot of Olympic parks, London is turning theirs into a wonderful destination where people flock to. And they used Piet to complement the design and architecture of the Olympic buildings, with a meadow along the river. So picturesque, so striking. I love this park and can't wait to see it someday. The Battery in Manhattan, New York City is one of his least famous designs, I think, or one of his lesser famous designs, but one of his unknowingly recognizable designs. I think everyone goes to this park and doesn't recognize that they're in a Piet Oudolf design. And that's a proof to see how harmonious his designs are and how peaceful they are. You just enter and you just feel relaxed, and you might not acknowledge it when you're just looking at the beautiful city. And that's just a few of his designs. So this is a quick, brief summary of his process. He comes and he creates a design that has a ton of movement to it and that uses his palette of, like, almost all his designs have over 100 plants in them. So a huge variety of plants, again, showing the importance that he feels to plant knowledge. And then gradually going, he has plant lists, and he directly translates his plans into the landscape. They are the exact same as each other. They're the same colors, they're the same plants, they're the same shapes, everything. And in the bottom pictures, you can see how he creates that. His career itself, as I've mentioned, is incredible. But just some highlights. Best in Show at the 2000 Chelsea Flower Show. And he's been recognized multiple other times for what he's done for the industry itself. He also has an incredible documentary called 5 Seasons, The Gardens of Piet Oudolf. This is incredible. I can't wait to pay a handful of money to watch this, but it does have some incredible reviews and would be very educational. And he has a huge plethora of books behind his career that point to all sorts of inspirations. These are just my references, but I do want to point out the top. Oudolf.com is his website, and this is where I got almost all the pictures for this slideshow. It's incredible to see everything that he's done in his career. So yeah, I hope that Piet interests you, inspires you as much as he does me. And I hope you really took something home with this slideshow.